They arrested me at a gas station. No warning, no explanation, just flashing lights and cold handcuffs. And 24 hours later, I was sitting behind the bench as the judge presiding over their hearing. That's when I realized how fragile dignity can be and how powerful grace truly is. It started like any other evening. I had just finished a long day at work and stopped at a gas station on my way home. I remember feeling tired but relieved, already thinking about dinner and the quiet of my living room. The station was nearly empty. A couple cars at the pumps. Soft music playing from inside the store. I paid for my gas, stepped back outside, and began filling my tank. That's when I noticed a police cruiser pull in. At first, I didn't think much of it. Officers stop at gas stations all the time. I focused on the pump, watching the numbers climb. Then I heard footsteps behind me. "Sir, can you step away from the vehicle?" I turned slowly. 2 officers were standing there. I asked calmly, "Is there a problem?" One of them glanced at the license plate, then back at me. "We receive a call about a suspicious person matching your description." Suspicious. I looked around. I was wearing business, casual clothes. Clean shoes. Phone in my pocket. Nothing about me felt suspicious. But I had learned long ago that logic doesn't always guide moments like these. "I'm just getting gas," I said quietly. They asked for my ID. I handed it over. They spoke to each other in low voices while I stood there, tried to keep my breathing steady. Cars passed on a road nearby. Somewhere, a door chimed as someone entered the store. Minutes felt longer than they should have. Then one officer looked at me and said, "Turn around." My stomach dropped. "Am I being detained?" "Yes." "For what?" "We'll explain in a moment." They placed my hands behind my back and snapped the cuffs on. Cold metal. Tight wrists. People inside the store began to stare through the glass. I felt exposed. Humiliated. Confused. I had spent years building a life around professionalism and respect. I had dedicated myself to public service, to fairness, to the belief that the law exists to protect people. And here I was, standing beside a gas pump, being treated like a criminal. They searched my pockets. They searched my car. They asked the same questions again and again. "Where are you coming from? Where are you going? Do you have anything illegal on you?" I answered everything calmly. Eventually, they placed me in the back of the cruiser. I stared out the window as we drove away, trying to understand how a normal stop for gas had turned into this. At the station, they processed me. Fingerprints, photos, paperwork, all for a misunderstanding that should have ended within minutes. Hours later, after everything was reviewed, they realized there was no warrant, no violation, no reason to hold me. They released me with a brief apology. No explanation, no acknowledgement of embarrassment, just a quiet, "You're free to go." I went home that night, exhausted in ways sleep can't fix. Not physically, emotionally. I replayed the moment again and again in my mind. Every question, every look, every second I stood there feeling powerless. I didn't hate the officers, but I couldn't ignore what had happened. The next morning, I put on my robe and walked into the courthouse. I had a full docket that day. Cases lined up back to back. People waiting for justice. And as I reviewed the schedule, I saw 2 familiar names. The same officers from the night before. They were scheduled to appear in a departmental hearing related to another matter. They had no idea who I was. When the time came, they entered the courtroom. Their posture changed when they saw me behind the bench. Recognition flashed across their faces. Surprise. Then discomfort. I could feel the tension in the room. They stood quietly as I took my seat. For a brief moment, I wondered what they were thinking. Did they remember the gas station? Did they recognize me as the man they had handcuffed? Did they realize how different the power dynamic was now? I called the case forward. They approached respectfully. "Yes, Your Honor," they said. "Your Honor." Less than 24 hours earlier, I had been standing on concrete with my hands behind my back. Now they stood before me, and in that moment, I had a choice. I could let resentment guide me. I could embarrass them the way I had been embarrassed. I could remind them publicly of what had happened. But that's not why I became a judge. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about fairness. I handled their hearing the same way I handle every case, with professionalism, clarity, and respect. I listened. I reviewed the facts. I made my ruling based solely on the law. No personal emotion. No hidden agenda. Just justice. Afterward, as the courtroom cleared, I asked them to remain for a moment. They looked nervous. I spoke calmly. "I don't know if you remember me," I said, "but we met last night." Their eyes dropped. "Yes, Your Honor," one of them replied quietly. "I want you to understand something," I continued. "I followed every instruction. I stayed calm. I respected your authority. And still, I was arrested at a gas station for simply existing in that space." They didn't speak. "I don't say this to shame you," I said. "I say it because moments like that stay with people. They shape how we see the world. Every interaction you have matters." They nodded. I dismissed them. They thanked me and left. I sat there for a moment after they were gone, not feeling victorious, just reflective. Here's what that experience taught me. Power shifts quickly. The person you overlook today might be the one deciding your case tomorrow. But more importantly, every person deserves dignity, regardless of their title, their clothes, or where you meet them. Bias doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it shows up in assumptions, in hesitation, in who gets questioned first. And real change doesn't come from humiliation. It comes from awareness. I didn't need them to fear me. I needed them to see me, and hopefully to carry that lesson into every interaction that followed. That night reminded me why I chose this profession, not to sit above people, but to serve them, not to punish mistakes, but to guide toward better outcomes. We talk a lot about justice, but justice lives in everyday moments, in parking lots, in gas stations, in how we treat strangers when no one is watching. If there's one message I hope you take from this, it's this: stay calm when the world tests you. Stand firm in your integrity. And remember that character shows itself most clearly when you have the power to hurt someone and choose not to. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to Black and White Tales for more emotional stories and real-life reflections. And tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced a moment that completely changed how you see fairness?